So there are a lot of games coming out in 2023. In fact, I think it's one of the better looking years for games in recent memory. So what I've done is I've taken 10 of my most anticipated games and I put them in a list in ascending order from least anticipated to most anticipated. And I just want to go through them, go through my expectations, what I want, what I don't want, and I just want to talk about them. I love talking about games. It's what I'm passionate about. So I'm just going to kind of ramble on about some dot points that I've jotted down, and yeah, just kind of talk about them. Keep in mind that this is my list, so there's no strategy games or RTS games or anything on here. They're not games that I play, and you'll be able to skip to timestamps as well if you want to hear me talk about a certain game. But yeah, I'm excited, so let's get into it. Okay, so number 10 on this list is Atomic Heart. Now this game looks incredible. Just the sheer amount of variety in combat, just from what I've seen in the trailers, looks incredible. I mean, it looks so batshit crazy just from the amount of variety in the bosses and the abilities and the weapons. It looks kind of like a mix between Wolfenstein combat and like Doom combat, which I don't think is a bad thing. Structurally, this game will most likely feel familiar to games you've played before, but of course the spin on it is the thing you're going to be playing this for, which, I mean, thematically, this game looks incredibly unique. But again, the enemies and the enemy design, the world design, it all looks super unique. I'm going to keep using that word unique just because I don't really think I've ever seen anything like this before. I hope they can balance the amount of enemies that you fight as well. Like, I hope that there are scenarios where you're just rolling through a bunch of enemies, absolutely destroying them, and then you get to those challenging boss fights that take you like a few tries to actually complete. I think that's going to be a nice balance, especially with the variety in abilities, moves, weapons, all that. I think it's just going to be an incredible time. Something that excites me is that this game mechanically looks really well done. I see a lot of game trailers where the shooting or the movement looks a bit wonky or clunky, but in all the gameplay I've seen so far, this actually looks well done, and that's an incredibly important part in a shooter. So that's something I'm excited for. That actually looks good. Now, oddly enough, I don't usually care for a good story. Like, I do, but it's not the focal point for me in games most of the time. But oddly enough, I want this story to be good just because conceptually the game is so unique. I hope that they can pull off like an interesting story. Like Wolfenstein, the New Colossuses, that story kept me interested for a bit. Like, and as long as it lives up to that kind of standard of storytelling, then I think I'll be happy. But yeah, I just want them to pull off a story in this world because it looks so unique. And again, with every game on this list, or most games on this list, I hope that the progression systems are deep and satisfying and actually rewarding. And something that I hope as well, I'll say this in Dead Island as well, but something that I hope is that the progression systems reward you for completing challenges rather than going for a grind. I think in a game like this, you want to be able to complete challenges to unlock rewards and progress through the game rather than just having it be a grind. So I think that's an incredibly important balance to pull off. But yeah, Atomic Heart looks like an incredibly unique game. It looks like a lot of fun, and it just looks crazy. So hopefully they pull it off, and hopefully it's good. Okay, number 9, Sons of the Forest. I've recently played through a bit of Grounded, and it's kind of made me a little bit more interested in the kind of survival genre that you would see games like Subnautica or The Forest in. At this point, The Forest is iconic, like it's an iconic game, so you can't really help but be excited for a sequel. There's very little information out about this game right now, so I'm just going to list and speculate on some things that I actually want from it. I hope that the survival mechanics are challenging rather than an annoyance. In so many survival games, the survival mechanics themselves just kind of fall under being frustrating or annoying. But I think some games can pull off that balance well. Like Food and Hunger are an art to actually be able to pull off. So I hope that all the survival mechanics in this game are well done and, again, balanced and challenging. Satisfying building mechanics. Obviously, it's a survival game. You need a place to huddle up for the night, so hopefully the building mechanics are satisfying and rewarding as well. Something incredibly important in these games as well is a story that eggs you on to keep completing it. Again, like I said, I've been playing through Grounded, and I'm interested in that story. And if you played through the original Forest, then you know you want to go through that game to find out what happened to your son. If the story is good as well, it'll help you to actually explore the open world. Speaking of the open world, I hope that it's well done. You know, I hope that this open world feels alive. I hope that they do everything they can to make it as atmospheric as possible. Fill it with mysteries that you want to uncover, you know. It's an open world survival game, so the world needs to feel believable within the context. And they did that really well in the original Forest, so hopefully they can add to that in this one. I have no doubt that they will pull off the incredible amount of creepy enemies that the game's known for. Obviously, the gameplay trailers have shown already some of these weird creations, and I hope they really go over the top with it in this game, because they're a really iconic enemy type, so hopefully they can pull off those really well. And then the last thing, I just hope that the experience with friends is good. It's likely that I'll play through this game solo, or at least give it a go, but the real reason I'm excited is because I want to experience it with friends, like most people, so hopefully that experience is good. Okay, so if you're not excited for party animals, what? This game could genuinely topple every other party game, like, off the top of the whatever peak they're on. Like, this has the opportunity to become the staple party game that you play with your friends every time you do a drinking night, or every time you just want to play a game with your friends to chill. The last time that people were allowed to play this game, I played it. I had a bunch of fun. It was something that I'd never really played before. Obviously, games like Gang Beasts exist, but this one felt like in its own lane. And it also seems like they've added way more to it since the last time everyone was allowed to play. One of the exciting things for me with this game is the uniqueness in the environments. Similar to Gang Beasts as well, I think the fun of the game lies in the interactions with the environments, pushing people off of a plane into a furnace, how the environment changes. I think that's all incredibly important parts in a game like this, because otherwise it would just be bashing each other, and that's fun, but you need that dynamic of something else happening within the level. And of course, it looks like they're going to pull that off. They have tons of gimmicks from what I've seen in the gameplay trailers. You know, the train going through the subway, or the ice on the jet plane. But yeah, incredibly excited for this one. Okay, so number 7 is Stalker 2. Now, I'll be honest, I'm not necessarily a fan of the Stalker franchise. However, I did play the shit out of the Misery mod. So that's where I'm coming at this game from, is a fan of that mod rather than a fan of the Stalker franchise. So saying that, I'm excited for this game's potential because, I mean, the setting to me is incredibly enticing. It's an open world FPS set in the Chernobyl exclusion zone. Yeah, like, that's enticing. But yeah, saying that I'm not a fan of the Stalker franchise, maybe I shouldn't have put it at number 7 on my list, but I am excited for it nonetheless. Again, conceptually, thematically, this game looks incredible. And having played the Misery mod, I experienced a bit of what Stalker is actually like. Something I remember from the Misery mod was how immersive the world actually was. It gave me a real sense for how fucked the world actually was, and walking around it felt very immersive. So I hope that they can pull that off in this game too, and I have no doubts that they'll be able to. And obviously, I really hope for deep progression systems wherever they lie. Obviously, this game's not going to have like deep RPG systems, and I'm not expecting that or wanting that either, but from the Misery mod I can remember deep like weapon customization, really deep survival mechanics that were challenging, and you know, like a satisfying inventory system. It was fun to go and explore the world and loot what the world had to offer. So yeah, that I'm expecting a similar standard of progression and depth in the systems that do exist. Again, I don't know much about the Stalker franchise. I played the shit out of the Misery mod, but I don't know what to expect from a sequel to the Stalker games. All I know is that GSC has a real opportunity here to introduce people who weren't previous fans of the Stalker franchise to the Stalker franchise, me being one of them. And I think for that reason, that's kind of why I put it on the list, is because from what I've seen of Stalker, it's a game that I should really play and have enjoyed just in a different setting in the past. So I'm excited for this one. Number 6 is Starfield. Now, there is a big concern that Starfield won't live up to expectations. Bethesda's, I wouldn't say they're on thin ice, but with Fallout 76, they're on thinner ice than they've been before. Bethesda can certainly deliver a fantastic RPG experience, but what I'm worried about is that the systems and mechanics within Starfield will become tedium rather than giving us a constant momentum of moving forward. If I'm constantly talking to people, if I'm constantly stopping to get resources that I need, if the game becomes doing the same thing over and over and over again, then it's going to get boring real fast and it'll just halt like halfway through. Another big worry is the shooting mechanics. Weirdly enough, they looked awful in the trailer. I don't know why they showed them, to be honest. I hope they've fixed them. I hope they've changed them because, yeah, as a FPS veteran, they looked horrendous in the trailer. And of course, another worry is that the game will crumble under its ambitions when it comes to the planets. There's 1,000 planets. That's a lot of planets, and it's a lot of work to make them feel worth exploring. It's a lot of work to make them feel full of life rather than lifeless. I think the biggest thing is going to be giving players reasons to explore them, giving players reasons to want to go to them to experience a new part of the game or something that they haven't experienced before. Obviously, you get No Man's Sky vibes, and they showed off some cool creatures and stuff in the trailer, so hopefully when going to these other planets, you do experience that variety in life, that variety in environment. One thing I will say is that the cities in this game look really awesome. They look really unique. I saw like there's obviously that one they showed in the trailer with the kind of like curved building, and then there's like a deep cyberpunk city. And so obviously the handcrafted stuff I'm not worried about. It's everything outside of the handcrafted stuff. One important thing that I thought I would mention, it's just something I thought of, is in a Bethesda game like Fallout, like Skyrim, there's this relationship between curiosity and reward. You are rewarded for your curiosity when you explore the open world that has been crafted for you. Doing that in a game with 1,000 planets is going to be a little bit hard because obviously a lot of it's procedurally generated. So I think best case scenario is that you keep that relationship between curiosity and reward while you're exploring the handcrafted stuff, and then the procedural stuff is there to go to and to enjoy, and it's worth exploring. And I just hope that like that curiosity remains as well in that kind of procedural stuff. This is an RPG as well, so progression systems are incredibly important. Again, I hope that I'm not max level by the time I get halfway through the game. I have a tendency to do all the side content, and I can remember in Cyberpunk, I was like max level and I hadn't finished the story, and that was kind of like demotivating a little bit just because I really want to be able to progress constantly. Like I want it to be almost infinite progression. So I hope that the progression systems in this game are deep, they're meaningful. And yeah, I've said this a couple times, but I just hope that the game doesn't crumble under tedium and it doesn't crumble under its ambitions. From what I've seen, they're going for a lot in this game. Shipbuilding, deep RPG, planet exploration, among so many other things. So I just hope that it all fits well and it's all balanced well, and you spend an equal amount of time doing all the things that you love within the game. And I just hope it doesn't crumble under the ambitions that they've set for themselves. Okay, number 5 is The Day Before. This game has the opportunity to flop like nothing before it has. Rust and DayZ have dominated the open world survival PvP genre for years, and this game has an opportunity to go up there with the giants, and I really do hope it pulls it off. I don't like DayZ standalone nearly as much as I like the mod. I know that Rust is good, I just don't have the time to play it, or don't really want to play it, don't want to get invested in it. And those two games have dominated the genre for years. I hope this is that one game that gets up there with them and starts competing with them. However, like most people, I'm very skeptical. The gameplay that has been shown looks like it reeks of, this is set up for the gameplay showcase, this is not what it's actually going to be like. That's what it reeks of. However, if they do pull it off, again, a concept like this is a game that will dominate its genre. In terms of the systems and things that are in the game, I couldn't find too much information about them. All I can see is what's in the trailer. And what's in the trailers look kind of surface level. Obviously, areas where players can go and be together, and then out in the wild, it's like you loot, you find stuff, and then kill other players or interact with other players, which is fine because I loved the DayZ mod, and the DayZ mod had all that. But to me, what's important in a game like this is how they pull off the player interactions. The thing about the DayZ mod, which I'll keep referring to because that's one of the games I think pulled off this genre extremely well, is that player interaction was very rare, and because it was very rare, it was very intense. Whether you were friendly, whether they were friendly, or whether you wanted to kill each other, every time you encountered a player, it was incredibly intense. Now, because this is an MMO in modern day, I doubt player interaction will be nearly as rare as it was in a DayZ mod, especially because I doubt the map will be as big. But I hope still that the player interaction is as intense as it was back then. I hope that there's high stakes. Like, I hope that you lose. I hope that you lose everything that you've got when you die. I hope there's, no way to recover it. I hope you're just a fresh spawn on the beach or wherever you spawn. I hope those stakes exist because I think that's what a game like this needs. I doubt it just because it's marketed as an MMO. I don't know what the stakes are going to be when you die, but I genuinely do hope you lose everything. And the last thing I'll say about this game is that the open world needs to feel, in today's day and age, it needs to feel of a certain quality. It needs to be of a certain standard. You can't have your open world in today's day and age be a backdrop. It needs to feel alive, it needs to feel immersive, and there needs to be a reason to explore it. So that's the last thing I'll say. Again, skeptical but excited. The reason it's number 5 is because if they pull it off, it could be a fantastic game. Alright, number 4 is Dead Island 2. All I hope for Dead Island 2 is that it lives up to the expectations of what a sequel should be. That's all I hope for. I don't need it to exceed given the development history of Dead Island 2. I know it's been passed from developer to developer. I know that it's been through development hell, I suppose. Or maybe it's not as bad as I'm making it out to be, but it's definitely been in the making for way longer than it should have been. It's open world, so I just hope that they make the open world seem believable, and I hope that there are opportunities for not only meaningless chaos, where I can just cause chaos wherever I want to, blow things up, and just be an absolute degenerate within the open world, as well as meaningful pursuits of content within the open world. I want to have reason to explore it. I don't want to be limited to a certain area, and again, I just hope that they make LA believable within the context of what they're going for. I said this in my reaction, but the combat looks somewhere between smooth and mechanically great and clunky. I hope that it's only smooth and mechanically great. Obviously, that's incredibly important in a game that's main focus is going to be the combat. On top of that, I hope traversal is exciting in this game. I don't know how else to put it. We saw what Dying Light could be if you make traversal a main selling point of the game. Obviously, it's not going to be a selling point in this game, but I think traversal is still important in a game like this. Being able to say, I want to go there, and then actually being able to go there. One of my hopes is that they lean heavily into the batshit crazy kind of tone. From the trailers, you can see that the characters are definitely crazy, and I hope that the gameplay also reflects that. I think it's just a good tone to go for in a game like this. Progression is, of course, important. Fill it with deep and meaningful progression, like in every game with elements like this. Make it so that the progression is rewarding and challenging. Give me a reason to challenge myself or to continue to grind the game out. And then, of course, I don't think it's super necessary with this one, but reasons for multiple playthroughs in games is always good, or a new game plus or something like that. I think Dead Island, hopefully they live up to the expectations of what a Dead Island sequel should be, and I have slight faith that they will. Okay, now we're getting to the big boys, the top 3. Number 3 is Payday 3. This is a big one for me because I loved grinding Payday 2 and I have high hopes for Payday 3. There's no gameplay for Payday 3 right now, so it's just a couple concept arts. I wish there was gameplay since it's coming out next year, but there isn't, unfortunately. And maybe that's concerning. Who knows? I've been playing through Hitman, and what's obvious to me about Hitman is that there is so much variety in what you can do within the levels and how you can complete them, how you can start them, the gadgets that you take into them. There's just like so much variety. I hope for that in Payday 3. So the big discussion for me when it comes to Payday 3 is tone. Payday 2 had a very unrealistic tone. It was very arcadey, again, not realistic at all. And it was very fast-paced, action-packed, right? So that's Payday 2's tone, and that's iconic for that reason. In Payday 3, what do they go for? Do they go for a more gritty, realistic tone? I don't think so. Or do they emphasize the arcadey shooter, fast-paced action kind of tank so many bullets, unrealistic style? I think it would be better if they... Obviously, it would be better if they leaned into that unrealistic style, because that's what Payday's known for, and that's what's... I mean, that's why the game is fun. Part of me really hopes that they do, in certain elements of the game, lean into a more gritty and realistic experience, especially in the stealth missions. I think you have a unique opportunity here to make those stealth experiences a bit more tense. Obviously, don't ruin the over-the-top tone of Payday for that experience, because I think you'll just get a tonal whiplash if that's the case, but they do have a unique opportunity here. Obviously, progression is huge in Payday. How many infamy levels are there in Payday 2? Like 100 to 1,000, something like that. Something ridiculous. But Payday 3 is a game that people are going to be playing for years. Payday 2 is still played, what, 9 years later? Almost 10 years later? Came out in 2013, I think. And so that's how they should be thinking about Payday 3. Progression in this game should be deep and almost infinitely replayable. Obviously, I hope that the progression systems lean into the context of the game as well. Again, to lean on Hitman, something in that game is that you get location mastery, right? So you unlock certain starting points and things depending on what you've done at that location. So I'm thinking maybe you get like a heist mastery or something, that you unlock certain things or certain ways to play the heist if you've done it multiple times, or if you've achieved a certain objective within that heist. I think that'd be really interesting. Now, one of the most euphoric experiences I've ever had in gaming is in a loud heist. You're sitting there with friends, mowing down cops while the incredible soundtrack of Payday 2 plays. That experience needs to be in this game. So whoever they get to do the music, whether it's the person from Payday 2, who I forget the name of, which sucks, I shouldn't, or whether it's someone else, I just hope that that experience is in this game. The other discussion point for me is, I know Payday 2 on release didn't have too much content, but if you play it now, it's a completely different experience. There's so much DLC and so many different heists and guns and cosmetics and tons of things. So the discussion point for me is, okay, what's the release structure of content going to be like for Payday 3? That's an interesting thing for me, because right now in Payday 2, they're releasing DLCs with prices that might not be justifiable given the amount of content within the DLC. What are they going to do for Payday 3? It's a concern, but it's also exciting because so much content has been released for Payday 2 that I know that there's so much content that's going to be released for Payday 3. It's just how expensive, I suppose, is all that extra content going to be. There's also the discussion of structure. Like, is this going to be like a semi-open world game? How are we going to go in and out of missions? What's the hub location going to be like? I think that's a really interesting one. And again, there isn't much out about this game right now, so we don't really know what it's going to be like. But yeah, that's an interesting discussion point. Again, Payday 3 is huge for me. I really, really do hope they can pull it off. Alright, number two is Hades 2. Now, spoiler alert, Hogwarts Legacy is number 1, but if Hogwarts Legacy wasn't there, this would be number 1. Hades 1 is a game that, to me, perfected almost every element of game design, which is a really good reason to be excited about Hades 2. In fact, I go as far to say that the best thing about Hades 2 is the fact that we have Supergiant developing it, and that they have to kind of expand on the elements that made Hades 1 great. And if you have all these perfect elements within Hades 1, how do you expand on those perfect elements? It's an incredibly exciting concept. I guess that makes my expectations for Hades 2 incredibly high, and I hope they can live up to those expectations. Obviously, I hope that the story is good. I hope that the combat is crazy and that the power-ups are even crazier. If I could give, and I don't want to, but if I could give a criticism to Hades 1, it would be that the power-ups weren't crazy. And maybe that's what they were going for, but I kind of hope that in Hades 2, the power-ups are even more crazy. The boons you can get break the game even more than before. I hope the progression systems are really deep and that there are more of them than in Hades 1 and that they're deeper than before. I think Hades 1, obviously incredibly replayable, but I think you have an opportunity here with Hades 2 to layer on more elements that make the game more and more replayable. For example, I put 100 plus hours into Hades 1, but with Hades 2, you have an opportunity to add elements to it that make it 200 hours, 300 hours. I'll mention this again, but one thing about Hades 1, unlike other roguelikes, is that you couldn't really like super break the game. It was very well balanced in that sense, and I think if they want to repeat that style with Hades 2, it's not going to be a problem for me, but I do kind of hope that they lean into that crazy build kind of style that you see in other roguelikes, and where you can just break the game entirely. It could be a problem. For example, the Hades fight in Hades 1 is so incredible, and the pacing of it's so well done, and if you get to him and you can't experience the soundtrack and you just kill him in like 1 or 2 hits, is that really worth it? Is that worth the crazy builds? Probably not. So again, I wouldn't have a problem if they reined that craziness in. From what I've seen as well, Darren Korb is back on the soundtrack, so I mean that's half of the deal right there. That's just done deal, man. I'm in. But in all seriousness, there are only really 2 parts of Hades 2 that I wish were deeper and thought out more, and that's the combat and progression. Every other element of the game can be of the same quality of Hades 1, and I will be perfectly fine. But I do want the combat to be deeper and more varied, and I do want the progression to be deeper and have extra layers on it. But yeah, Hades 2, I mean, incredibly excited, and I have absolutely zero doubts that Supergiant will be able to pull this one off. I mean, given their track record. And the number 1 game that I am most looking forward to is, of course, Hogwarts Legacy. I'm a Harry Potter fan, what can I say? I hope that the scope is massive and it doesn't just end up being a 40-hour game. Like, I hope that it goes for 40 plus hours, like into the hundreds. And if it doesn't go into the hundreds, then I hope that there's reasons for multiple playthroughs. Something incredibly important with this Harry Potter game is that you make it last for years and years and years. There has been no impactful Harry Potter game that has come out in recent years, so this kind of needs to be like a Skyrim, where people are playing it, years and years and years after it's been released. And I just hope that the scope of the game and everything that's involved in the game, whether it's the puzzles, Hogwarts itself, the open world, I just hope that it lives up to expectations, and that you can play it for years and years and years. And again, there are reasons for multiple playthroughs. I hope that the combat is smooth and not clunky. I hope that the spells are nicely woven into every other combat mechanic. Something important for a Harry Potter game, obviously, is making the world feel immersive. You want to be immersed in a universe like Harry Potter, so they have to really pull off kind of making the open world feel alive. My worst nightmare is that the open world is just a backdrop to the whole game. Something else that I hope for is that the story is faithful to the original feeling, the original source material feeling. I don't want it to be similar to the source material. I just want the feeling to be similar, I suppose. I want that nostalgia hit when it comes to the story. One of my worries is that the progression systems aren't going to be as deep as I'd like them to be, so I do hope that the progression systems are deep. It's a magical wizard world. There's so much you can do with progression, and I really hope the progression isn't halted halfway through just because I opted into doing all the side content and now I'm max level, but there's still half of the story left to go. I hope that they make the progression system last longer than like the 40-hour runtime that I would expect the game to be. And of course, whatever other RPG mechanics that do exist, gear, spell customization, whatever they choose to put in terms of RPG mechanics, I just hope that they're well thought out and satisfying to complete. A concern is in the gameplay footage they showed, the characters look kind of cardboardy, almost like a Bethesda-esque kind of game where the characters aren't really super emotive. It's not a big thing, it's just like kind of a concern and could take you out of the immersion. I also hope that Hogwarts itself is fully imagined. I don't want to be... I mean, they've shown off so much already, and they seem very confident that Hogwarts is this massive castle with tons of secrets and stuff, so I hope they do pull that off, and I hope what they're saying actually lives up to expectations within the game, because I think if they can pull off a really kind of well done, deep, immersive Hogwarts experience, then that's like a solid part of the game that people are looking forward to, just knocked off. But overall, I'm just hoping that it lives up to expectations. I don't want it to exceed expectations. I don't care if it exceeds expectations. I just want it to live up to the kind of gargantuan task of creating an open world Harry Potter RPG. So yeah, but excited nonetheless. Hi, this is Future Russell. I fucked up and made the video 30 minutes long. I didn't mean to, but if you stuck to the end, I do appreciate it. Just make sure you subscribe and follow me on Twitter.